Hey church, as many of you know, we launched 2 new campuses this fall, one in Virginia and one in Ohio. First off, I just want to shout out to the amazing team of volunteers at each of these campuses. Launching a campus is no easy task, but without you guys, it's literally not even possible. So I just want to personally say thank you. Secondly, I had a chance to be at our Virginia campus last weekend. Our campus had this fall festival for the community where families can bring their kids and experience some fun and connection. And we had about 200 people from the community come in to experience this and connect with our church. The amazing volunteers that pulled this off did a great job getting to connect with the people that were coming from the community and letting them know who South Hills is, why we exist, and how we can serve their families and connect them to a relationship with Christ. And at our Ohio campus, there are 2 different ladies that already made the decision to get baptized. Each of these women came to Launch Sunday and then came back the following week when we played a video talking about the importance of baptism. And the other really cool thing is they actually connected with each other and have already started building a friendship. Now let's fast forward. This last weekend, both of these ladies were baptized and their new church family celebrated alongside of them. How cool is that? Now these are just 2 of the many beautiful stories I've been hearing. God is doing some amazing things at our Virginia and Ohio campuses, and I would love for all of us to continue to pray and encourage them as they continue to do God's work.
I can quit whenever I want. I wouldn't even call my thing an addiction. It's just something I do. And it relaxes me. It's not like it's hurting anyone. Is it the best thing for me? Maybe not. But I can quit whenever I want.
But we're so glad that you are here. We're going to kick off a brand new series today, and I brought some props with me, okay? Now, I have a prop here. Now, it is scientifically proven, so you know, that Diet Coke is good for your health. Now, here, before you beat me up, I'm going to show you why it's scientifically proven. Because when I don't drink Diet Cokes, I get headaches. And then when I drink this magical elixir, my headaches go away. Clearly, this is good for me. Clearly, this is a good thing for me. And it's not that I'm addicted to it. It's just that it obviously is a good thing for my health. Now, obviously, I'm kidding around, but that's kind of what we do, right? With our addictions, we kind of make a lot of excuses about it. Now, a lot of times when I say addict or you're addicted to something, we automatically go to alcohol or drugs or sex or food or porn or whatever. But actually, you could be addicted to pretty much anything. Not pretty much anything. You actually could be addicted to anything. Let me give you a definition. Addiction, a compulsive dependence on something to shift your mood, full ignorance of the relational problems your fixation is causing. Now, there's a lot of words in that, but let me just say, it could literally be anything. So for those of you who are saying, Diet Coke is terrible, and you're going to send me your little things about how terrible it is and all the studies, I've already got them all. What about you? Okay, let's turn the table here. I get it, Diet Coke's bad, okay, but what about you? What is it that you just can't do without? Thank you. Thank you for my sister being honest. Honestly, guys, that's why we have coffee. Because if we don't, it's Lord of the Rings in here. It gets crazy, right? You have to have coffee. Your chairs are flying. People are going crazy. We've got to make sure that we have coffee present. But for everybody, there's something. There's something that I have to have or I have to do in order for me to be okay. And a lot of times, you guys, what we do is we go, you know what? Life is really hard. I deserve this. I had a hard week this week. My job was really tough, so I deserve to go out and get wasted. Okay, I deserve that. I had a really tough relationships. I'm coming out of several relationships. So I deserve to have some disposable relationships and just kind of go sleeping around because I deserve that because I've been hurt. So we kind of talk ourselves into, I deserve this thing. The problem with that, guys, is it feels great in the moment. It truly does, all that stuff. But then afterwards, you find out you're in more debt. You find out you're in more broken relationships. You're finding out that you're more emotionally scarred. And you need another fix because eventually that thing isn't good enough and I want some more of it. I need a bigger craving of that. Now, you could say, well, how do I know if I'm addicted to this or that? You might want to remember this. It's probably something that if someone challenged you to give it up for 90 days, that suggestion would fill you with anger, anxiety, dread, and despair. If somebody says, don't do that thing for 90 days, what your reaction would be to that would be very telling that you can't do without it. I could stop at any point I want. Who are you to tell me what to do? It's my life. It's what I like to do. You're not my parent. Leave me alone. You're just jealous or whatever, right? We make all these excuses. And then we just kind of keep going from fix to fix to fix. Now, a lot of times when we do this, they could be things like Diet Coke or coffee or something, but it could also be something that you are filled with a tremendous amount of guilt. Maybe it's a sex addiction or porn or something like that, where you're just like, gosh, I don't want to do this anymore, and I don't want to talk to God about this anymore because like He's forgiven me 8,000 million times, and I feel like He's tired of forgiving me about this, and I feel like I'm letting Him down, and I don't know how to address this with Him anymore, and I just don't know what to do. So we kind of just don't even talk to God about it after a while because it's like, man, this is so bad. He's probably mad at me. If that's you, God is not mad at you at all. In fact, here's the really cool news. There's somebody in the New Testament, in fact, the author of most of the New Testament, that would say, I know exactly how you feel. I have the same thing. Paul, the guy that we look at, the guy we see images of, and there's like, there's a light shining behind his head, and he's like this holy guy saying the same thing. I get it, man. I got things that I don't like that I do too, but I still do them, and I hate that I do them. It bothers me. Look what he says. This is a very tongue twister passage, so bear with me. Romans 7:15 says, I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but it is the sin living in me that does it. And what he's saying is that like there are certain things that you just keep doing and you're trying to stop and you just kind of can't. And you wish you could. And honestly, if you read this verse, like I read these verses, I go, whew, I don't have to beat myself up anymore. This is not a license to go do whatever you want, trust me. But God's not mad at me. Cool. So wait, so I struggle with this sin and I struggle with these things, and you're telling me that God's not mad at me? No, not only is God not mad at you, He could actually do some amazing things in your life like He did in Paul's life. Okay? It's not like Paul became a Christian and didn't struggle with sin. It's not like you're going to become a Christian and go, boom, I'm cured, I'm good. We're all good now. It doesn't work that way. Paul was like, I'm still struggling with this thing. It's not easy. And it's this compulsion that I just keep doing, almost do it independent of my own will. I just keep doing this compulsion that I have to do this. It's then when we realize that this thing has more control over me than I do of it. And sometimes we feel bad, and other times we just want to ignore it. And we're just like, I'm not even going to talk to you about this, God, because you're going to get mad at me or you're probably frustrated. So I'm just going to keep this from you, and I'm going to pretend that I don't struggle with it. And I'm just going to pretend like I'm just going to push it down and not have to really address it. And we kind of go through life crossing our fingers, hoping that this thing doesn't end my marriage. Or I'm hoping that this thing doesn't end my relationship with my kids. Or I'm hoping that this thing doesn't get me fired from my job or whatever. You're just white knuckling your life, hoping that this thing doesn't destroy everything. And that's not the way God wants us to live. And I want to assure you that you're not the only one that struggles with this. We're going to talk today about a guy named Samson. Now, Samson was actually singled out as the protector and the leader of Israel. This is a very big position. And he's singled out from birth. He's like, you are going to be different. But there was a catch to these strengths. He had the supernatural strength. And there's a catch to it. And the catch was called the Nazirite vow. And the Nazirite vow had 3 particular things that you had to adhere to. You couldn't cut your hair, you could not drink wine, and you couldn't touch anything dead, any dead bodies. So you get all these powers, all the Nazirite, put my hand. Okay, me, I'd be like, is beer cool, or is it just wine, or and then don't touch any dead thing. Okay, that's easy. I could do that. I could not touch dead bodies. That the last one's not a bugaboo for me. I'm good. So he's thinking, okay, I could do this. Now, I think it's important to know, what does Nazir mean? Nazir means to be separated or consecrated. And so that is really what this is doing. He's like, I am going to willfully accept this deal, and I'm going to, out of my free will, I'm going to not do those things in order for me to have these powers. Okay, I'm going to actually commit to doing that. But eventually, it's a lot of pressure. It's lonely at the top. And eventually, after a while, he's like, listen, I'm kind of tired of being the hero to everybody. I want my own life. I want my own vices. I want my own things that are going to take the edge off a little bit. And for Samson, he's this guy who has everything, but nobody says no to him. Now, here's the truth. The easier it is to access something you enjoy, the harder it is not to indulge in it. Okay? So if you have access to something like that, you're going to indulge in it. It's just going to happen. You're not going to say, I'm not going to drink Diet Coke. I'm going to put it in front of me. I'm going to have it open, but I won't do it. Eventually, I'm just going to take a drink. If I have access to it, I'm eventually going to just do it. Okay, again, it's very lonely at the top, and he's tired of being told what to do, quite frankly. He wants to have his own life. This reminds me of something that happened to me when I first became a campus pastor years ago at another church. The church was going into a different direction, and they said, we want to get a little bit younger, so I was one of about 5 guys, young pastors that they selected to be campus pastors for all these different campuses. And in that group of 5, there was one of the guys was the main guy. Okay, this guy had it all. I mean, had it all. Great looking, beautiful wife. The guy knew the Bible better than any of us. The guy had all these credentials, a master's in divinity. The guy was set. He had the connections within the church. He was the golden boy. This was the guy. It was him and then all of us. Okay? And I was cool with it because he happened to be a really good friend of mine. We were really close. And so as we're going through this process, they have us like, we want you at this campus, and we want you at this event, and we want you at that event. And they're kind of managing our schedules for us, which was fine for me. Okay, whatever. And then eventually I started seeing this guy less and less, and then less and less. And we were really close. And so finally, we're at lunch one day, and I'm like, dude, where have you been? Like, what's going on? He's always got a lot going on. I was like, okay. A couple days later, I get a call from our big boss, our senior pastor. He said, I want all of you guys in my office. The guy, I didn't even know he had my phone number. I was like, oh, yes, okay, sir, okay. I don't know what to, did I do something? And he hung up already. I'm like, okay, we'll talk later. So finally get, go in, and he's in the middle of the room. He's been crying. His eyes were really puffy. And I'm like, what's going on in here? And I go, James, sit down. And so we all sat down. He goes, okay, tell him. And so this guy proceeded to tell us that he was having an affair with his worship leader. Friends, Princess and I are just friends, just for the record. Okay. and she said, James's ego. Okay. So he had an affair with his worship leader. And we're like, whoa, the guy had been crying and crying. And we were all kind of like emotional, and we were kind of crying. And I remember the senior pastor goes, I want you all to remember what you're seeing here, because this could easily be you and it could easily be me. I want you to understand what's happening here. We're like, whoa. Afterwards, I wanted to meet up with him and talk with him, and I looked for him and he was gone. Couldn't find him. And I'm like, this guy's got to be just absolutely distraught. And he said, dude, I needed to be get meeting. And I went to follow that girl where she was. That's how much this addiction was to him. He goes from humiliated to like, I am so sorry, this is terrible. And then he goes and searches for her right after that meeting is over. I have to be around her again. Obviously, it ruined his marriage, and the guy has since rebounded wonderfully after a lot of counseling. He is actually, he has a corporate job, but he does a lot of ministry still. He's got a family, kids, everything. But I remember in that moment, I was like, whoa, something can get you to the point where I just don't care what the consequences are. I have to have this. And I saw that that's how strong this can get. Now, for us, we might think, well, I'm not like Samson. Samson's got like these servants that go off and get him whatever he wants, and I'm not like that guy. I'm barely paycheck to paycheck. I don't have servants that are going to get me everything. I would actually say, you do. And it's called the internet. You could literally get anything you want on the internet, anything. Any vice you have. There has not been any time in the history of mankind where we've had the technology to get whatever I want right now. I want it now. Do I have the money? No, who cares? Charge it. I want it now. I want it all now. Whatever vice I have. Is it going to destroy my family? It might, but I'm willing to take the chance. We want it right now. And that's where we're in its culture. We see how Samson gets. He gets so used to getting everything he wants. Look how he talks to his parents. Judges 14:2 says, when he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now go get her for me as my wife. I mean, he's talking like that to his parents. I've seen this girl, go get her for me as my wife. I'm going to order everybody around because I'm the main guy. I'm it. And then we see here, he's starting to kind of, starting to get in trouble here. Judges 14:8. Sometime later, he went back to marry her. He turned aside to look at the lion's carcass, and in it he saw a swarm of bees and some honey. He scooped out the honey with his hands and ate as he went along. When he rejoined his parents, he gave them some, and they ate it too. But he did not tell them that he had taken it off. Bees on it. I don't. And scripture that they didn't know where he got it from. Okay, it's clear that if they took it, they knew where he got it from. It's like, hey, I found this in a dead lion. You want some? I mean, they're obviously gonna go, no, I'm good, thanks, I'm full. But like, he's got this thing where all I do is win. That's it, and nobody says no to me. Okay, I guess gets what he wants. Look at it as another example of how his character is changing. This time I have the right to get even with the Philistines. I will really harm them. So he went out and caught 300 foxes and tied them tail to tail in pairs. Then he fastened a torch to every pair of tails, lit the torches, and let the foxes loose in the standing grain of the Philistines. He burned up the shocks and standing grain together with the vineyards and olive groves. Now, as we're seeing here, there's a pattern, and he's got several different addictions. He's got lust, obviously. He's got gluttony. He's even got rage. But what we're seeing, what the worst thing about Samson is, he's got pride. His pride's taken over at this point. I am awesome. All I do is win, and there's nobody better than me. Okay? I'm going to get what I want, when I want, how I want. And as long as it feels good for me, that's good. Now, if you're Samson, you could say, listen, not really nice. Out, they look a mess. They're on the street corner. Look at me, man. My body's awesome. I get all the girls I want. I got a giant place to live. I got servants. I'm clearly not an addict. I'm winning. And addicts don't win like me. But as you see, it's gradual. He starts to become more self-focused, more short-tempered, more distracted, more entitled. Happening. And it's you're not the same guy. He wasn't smart enough to have good people around him and say, hey, you're changing. Something's wrong. If you've got people in your life, by the way, that are going to speak into your life and go, hey, you're changing. Something's not right. Keep those people in your life, please. Those are good people to have. Something's off. Something's not right. And what we see is he goes from fix to fix, and he thinks there's no consequences to what I'm doing. And Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, see if you could lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him so that we would tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued. Okay. Fair. Sorry. So if it's me and I'm Samson's friend, I'm like, dude, run. Girl, be crazy. She wants to tie you up? Come on, get out of there. I'm sure even Samson's like, this is a little weird, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to see what's going on here. I'm just going to see where it gets me. Why? Why in the world, when she's literally telling him, what's the secret so I could tie you up, why is he even still talking to her? Because of the high. She gives him a high. And that's why we do what we do, right? We like the high it gives us in that moment. And that's really what's happening. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna kind of go with this for a little while. Even though it's hurt, he knows it could hurt him, but he doesn't kind of care at this point. He doesn't really care about the consequences. And I think it's important to remember this, guys. Part of the reason we stay in denial of our addiction so long is we're using the wrong measuring stick. We say it's not completely destroying me, as opposed to asking, is this preventing me from being the best version of me? So if you do something, you're not like, well, I'm not really going to lose my marriage for this particular thing, so I guess I'm cool. Or I'm not really going to lose my job for this particular thing, so I guess I'm cool. Or I'm not going to lose my finance for this particular thing, so I guess I'm cool. And after a while, that mindset, consequences, I'm doing is winning anyway. I clearly could go through life being an addict of this and have everything I ever wanted. I could do both. And so that's where Samson's at right now. I've got it all, okay? Look what we say here, see here in Hebrews 12:1. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that entangles, and let us run with perseverance. Us. Fascinating is what this passage is saying is yes, throw off the sin, but also yes, throw off the weight of what you're doing. There are two different things, guys. I want you to remember this. Please remember this if you don't remember anything else. Things that aren't a sin can still ruin your life. Remember that. Things can still ruin your life. Shoes aren't a sin. Cars aren't a sin. Have you seen? I mean, like, all these things. So therefore, I'm good. I'm actually okay. Here's where it goes off the rails. Okay, there's nothing forbidden from any of those things, but are they good for you, and are they getting you closer to who God wants you to be? That's the goal at the end of the day. You see, right now, in that thing. But today it's constantly flowing, and you're not going to get it put back. And so God is saying, I'm going to give you this amount of time. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to trust me with it, or are you not going to trust me with it? And a lot of times people want it all. I want to trust you, but I want to do whatever I want to do too. And he's saying, I need you to trust me, okay? So remember the deal that Samson made. As long as he sticks to the vow, now he starts. So she hasn't really. She's not dead. Really doing anything wrong? He's like word games. You don't want to play those games with God. You really, really don't. It's not going to end well for you at all. So if you're thinking, that's where it gets dangerous. One of the biggest indicators of addiction is you lack the humility and defensiveness. Nobody knows what spots. And the scary part, I'm sure we've all done this, is we ignore warning signs until one comes along that's too painful to overlook. So I think a lot of times, if you've ever lived this way, so finally something happens where you can't overlook it anymore. That relationship finally bottoms out. That job finally goes away. Somebody finally finds out what you've been up to. They finally found out you've been stealing from the company or whatever. Eventually, these things are going to bottom out for you, okay? And you can't avoid the issue anymore. So until you're ready to humbly admit that your fix won't fix you, your pride will prevent you from inviting God to do it for you, okay? I'm going to say something that you may not like to hear because I didn't like hearing it when I was preparing for this message. And that is so many of the things, the tragedies that happen in our life. And I say so many, not all, because there's some things that are just out of your control. There are certain tragedies that are car accidents or illnesses or anything that's just completely out of control. But a lot of the things that happen in our lives, we cause, okay? And the best thing that could happen to you is you could actually have terrible consequences. I know it sounds weird, but how many times have you looked back and said, man, I'm so glad that relationship didn't work out? Whew. At the moment, you were like, this is my love of my life. What am I going to do? I don't know. My life's over. But now you look back and you're like, man, I'm glad that didn't work out. Or I'm glad that job didn't work out. That didn't happen. Even though you went through some stuff. And then it's in those moments you realize you're not the manager of your life. You got to manage. It's your through a lot of these things, and he's going to allow these things to happen until you finally hit the wall. For Samson, that's what it actually takes. He finally hits the wall. Judges 16:20, it says this. Then she called, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and thought, I'll go out as before and shake myself free, but he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza, binding him with a bronze shackles. They binding him. This sounds It's on purpose. He was clearly going the wrong way, and God's like, listen, I'm going to allow something to happen to you that's not going to be pleasant, but you need it to go forward, okay? I mean, how many times have you heard this? It wasn't until I lost everything that I realized maybe money's not the answer. It wasn't until I had a heart attack that I realized maybe I should watch what I eat a little bit better. It wasn't until my wife left me that I realized maybe I should deal with this sex addiction or this porn addiction. It wasn't until I really get hurt bad. And it's in those moments that God will allow this as almost like a bucket of cold water to hit you in the face to realize, wake up. Where do you seriously think this is taking you? Because it's taking you somewhere you're not going to want to be. And he's going to allow that so that maybe you could rethink that and go, maybe it's me that's doing this, and maybe I did allow God to take over for me instead of trying to do it on my own. So if that's you and you're like, what do? I would say this. Make a decision to turn your will in life over to the care of God. Just make a decision. I'm giving it to you, God. I'm sick of being sad all the time. I'm sick of being abused all the time. I'm sick of being used all the time. I'm sick of thinking I need this thing or that thing, and then when it's over, my life. I want you to take it over. And the question begs, what's it going to take? I mean, for a lot of us guys, God's the last thing really. Let's get real for a second. God's the first answer. God's the first answer. God's the first answer. We could say that because it sounds good when you say it at church because that's what Christians are supposed to say. But the truth is that we are the first answer. We do it all on our own. We want to fix it all immediately. And how many times have you heard this? Well, there's nothing else to do now. We just have to pray. That should be the first thing we're doing, right? We don't do it that way. I guess we'll have to pray about it then, I guess. I don't know anything else. I mean, I did everything else I could. We've got to make sure that we are first. And denial is a very powerful, powerful thing, guys. That's why, many times we don't even know that there's a larger source until we feel there's no other source. Well, if you want to see some really amazing ministry, don't go to giant mega churches and find out what's happening. That's great. They have big concerts, and nothing wrong with mega churches. If you're watching, I'm not mad at you if you go there. But that's great. Everything that's great as long as they're teaching the gospel. Great. But if you want to see real ministry, go to the prisons. You want to see really amazing life transformation ministry? Go to a prison. My dad worked in the prison. Our dad worked in the prison ministry for many years. And he would tell us, man, these guys have nothing left. They're like, the wall is it. That's why it makes me so frustrated. And this is not meant to be a political statement at all. But it makes me so frustrated when people politicize and district attorneys let people out for committing violent crimes and they don't put them in jail. They're hurting the community and that person. That person needs to go to prison to understand there are consequences to this life. It's only going to end terrible for you. And so when you go to these prisons and you see these guys that are going, hey, I've got nothing else, I'll try it. You're seeing unbelievable things happening, baptisms and ministries, and that's real ministry. I mean, that's real stuff where people are like, I got nothing else, and I'm giving it all right now. It's a good thing, right? Their lives are being saved. They're on the other side longer than they're on this side. My hero when I was a kid, one of my heroes was Christian Hosoi. He was a famous skateboarder. I was a great skateboarder when I was in my youth. I'm still pretty good right now. I see once. It's okay. See once. It's okay. So amazing. He was great. Amazing. He was great. He was one of the coolest skateboarders. And at the time in the 80s, I loved this guy because he had a lot of flair. I even tried to like dress like him. He had his shirt, and he would tuck his shirt back in the shorts, and they would flare out when he'd skate. And I tried to be like Christian Hosoi. But we knew, I think he does drugs, but when you're a kid, you're like, I don't really care because he's so cool. And like, I think he has lots of girlfriends, which makes him really cool. It's like, so all the things that aren't good, like, but we're like, wow, that guy's, but it actually ends up catching up to him. Just a segment of Christian's story. Check this out.
In the late 70s, my dad managed Marina Del Rey Skate Park. Dogtown, Z-Boys, Tony Alva, Jay Adams, Shogo Kubo, Stacy Peralta, they all took me underneath their wing. They taught me the ropes. They taught me how to become a professional skateboarder. I lived a great life, turning pro at 14 years old, skating with the rival Tony Hawk for many years, even almost a decade into the 90s. And life took a turn. I started using drugs more and more. Pretty soon it became everything to me. I even put skateboarding into the backseat of my life. Family was at the bottom of the list. And I always tell people it was like I was searching for love my whole life. It started with skateboarding. Pretty soon it became fame. It became cover. Next thing you know, it was all about doing drugs in the places you did drugs. All the VIP parties in Hollywood. Growing up in Hollywood was a place where you had to fit in. And I had to fit in because of who I was. I did and saw it all until the lifestyle landed me in prison. And in that prison cell, when all my lines were cut, when all of a sudden I couldn't talk my way out of it anymore, I finally was at rock bottom. But it was God that right there confronted me. Heaven confronted me, and she said, Christian, you need to go get a Bible. First day in that prison cell. And in that first day, I opened up that Bible, never ever reading a Bible before. And it was like it spoke its truth to me. It was like the scales fell off my eyes. And I realized that I was created for a purpose, that there was a reason for me being alive. I share my story now to offer hope. Through all the craziness, through my life of highs to extreme lows, through it all, I found that there's peace, there's joy, and there's contentment.
Cool thing about Christian stories is I don't know, and he goes, I don't know, and he goes, well, take no, and he goes, well, take this, and he gave him his Bible, and his Christian was in prison, on social media, and I just saw that 3 days ago he had a long line of people at a church in Huntington Beach that he was baptizing people. So he's a pastor right now. He's an evangelist. It's an unbelievable story. I say that to you because, again, enough's never going to be enough. You know, I talked to somebody and there we had a major disagreement and it was talking about socialism, and I was saying, well, I'm a capitalist and I could be a capitalist and be a Christian, and I said capitalism's not the problem. The problem is that people, enough's never enough. Capitalism just says you're free to do what my grandfather came to this country with nothing. By the time he passed away, he was a millionaire and he owned a lot of properties. You can't do that in any other country. It's the greatest country in the world. You could do whatever you want, be whatever you want, right? But for a lot of people, enough's never enough. That's the only downside. It's not the institution of capitalism. It's really the people's mindset of enough's never enough. I want more. This isn't enough. I have to get more and more and more. We don't understand how to say no to something. For Christian and for me and for a lot of maybe you, enough's never enough. What more? We need more. You see this in the church culture. You could just say, well, we had 100 baptisms. Awesome. Could you get 120? Because that's really, you can't even celebrate. I've been in churches before where we had 4,000 people at a Christmas event, and we'd be in a meeting the next week. Oh, that's great. What can we do next year to get 5,000? Can we celebrate 4,000 people or is that a Christmas event? So it's not just the capitalism or America, it's everything, guys. It's our culture of more. Numbers. I want more, I want bigger, I want more. And that's something that we've got to search in us. And that's something that only we could do. That's not something that somebody does for you. That's something that you take on yourself. 39. Search me, 39. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. A lot of 12-step programs would actually call this taking a fearless moral inventory of yourself. Now, what's cool about David is this is the same guy that literally had his mistress's husband murdered. And God still says, David has the heart of me. Now, if you're thinking, how in the world can God say David has the heart of God and he has his mistress's husband killed? How can you say that? Because of this verse. He says, listen, God, search me. I'm not perfect. I've got stuff that's going on. I don't want to be this way anymore. Take it away from me. What he's doing is he's living with humility, going, God, you know better than me. Manage my life. I can't do this anymore. Okay? And you might be able to relate because the one person who can't seem to see how we're getting in our own way is us. And if you think you've got no blind spots, you are the blindest of them all. You don't want to find out the hard way, guys. This is the example of the Samson story, guys. When I talk to God, like, God, I want to learn like I don't want to learn like Samson. I like to learn, but I like to keep my eyeballs if it's possible. So I want to make sure that I'm getting this, but I'm not, totally. But I mentioned this last week too, but when I teach, I don't look at any other speakers when I teach because I don't want to try to emulate anybody else. I just want to be as me as I can. And a lot of times I will tell you super embarrassing things about me, things I struggle with. When I'm reading this, when I'm preparing for this message, I'm like, man, I've got impulse issues. I've got faith issues. If I think God's taking too long, I take it from God and try to do it on my own. Building is a great example of that. Right? I was trying to do a lot on my own, and God, you're not moving fast enough. I got to do more of this, and I've got my own issues that way. And it's like, well, why would I say that? It's not just so you guys can go, oh, that pastor's pretty relatable. I have a healthy fear of God, and I don't want him. I don't want to learn a lesson the way Samson did. And I also want to make sure that our church is a place where now you have an invitation to be real with me, guys. I don't know about you, but I can't handle phony people. And I certainly don't want to do it at a church. I want to know whoever's talking has got issues, so do I. Let's get together and let's try to get through this together. Instead of trying to listen, guys, I've seen famous pastors talk and they're amazing. And they've done amazing things. And when I look at those guys, I'm like, I'll never be that guy. You got this pastor up there talking to thousands of people, said he's been to every country in the world doing ministry. You know where I've been? San Felipe at spring break, and I've been to Hawaii a few times. Okay? And then and then some pastors actually feel the need to tell you how much they give, which I think is wildly inappropriate because I think it's something between you and God. I certainly tithe, but I'm not going to come and tell you, that's between you and God. But they all these big stories. I'm just me. Just a regular dude trying to pastor you, shepherd you, but in a real way, not in a way that you think you've got to be some perfect Christian guy to be a part of the church. Because you can't, or girl, you can't do it. None of us can. We've all got our stuff, and we've got to just be honest about it and not, pretend like we don't. So that's me, okay? But what about you? I wonder what you stand to lose if you don't make a change. What if you're just going to go, I'm going to live in denial. I'm going to do that thing where I cross my fingers and hope that this thing doesn't eventually destroy me. I'm going to do the best I can and just go through life thinking, I hope it doesn't eventually catch up to me. Listen, guys, understand this. You can't do it on your own. And Jesus says this in Mark. It says, Jesus looked at them and said, with man, this is impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God. All things includes your thing or whatever it is that is getting to you, guys. And whatever you do, even though it hurts you, is something that only God can fix in you. You got to remember that. So your job today, guys, is believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that's a big thing, guys. When you realize that this thing has control over you, it gets scary, but you want to make sure that it doesn't have control over you any longer. So here's a cool thing. If you want to be really bold, list anything you do to make yourself feel better that makes other areas of your life worse, and be honest about this. Write a list. and be honest about it. Again, don't play word games with God. God technically never said that I can't do this or that or the other. It's what Samson's life was. It's what your heart's doing. Is your heart really for God? Are you have the heart of God like David, or are you just kind of playing word games with God? God technically never said, I can't do that, right? I mean, make sure your heart is in the right place, guys. You might want to remember Paul's words when that comes up. 1 Corinthians 6:12, I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. Guys, God does not want you to live in enslavement of whatever it is that's got you. He doesn't. He wants you to be free. That's why he died on the cross. He's like, I want you to be free. In fact, he says, it's finished, meaning their debt's paid, they're free, they're good. I want them to live free. I don't want them to live enslaved to this addiction or this thing that they have to have. I want them to be free. I want my kids to enjoy life and be free and enjoy all the things that I give them, not thinking, well, I should have more or should do more. You want to know something? If you want to see somebody super depressed, that person, I guarantee you, feels they should have more. I guarantee you. You want to get out of that? Realize, thanks God for this. And if you're wondering if you're blessed or not, I want you to take a look right behind me. If you live here, you are blessed, period. So let's make sure that when we're coming here, we understand that, listen, God, everything I have is from you. I don't want to do this anymore, guys. And one of the biggest reasons why I've given my life to the church, for me, is I need it. If I'm isolated, I'll fall victim to all of my stuff. I promise you I will. I'm not strong enough or good enough to do it on my own. I don't care how much seminary I have. I don't care how long I've been a pastor. I am not strong enough to do it on my own. I need you. And you need me. We need each other. Nothing feeds addiction like isolation, but friend, trust me. If you're struggling with something and you're isolated, I promise you'll do it. No matter how many times you say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Don't fall for that, guys. Don't do life on your own. God wants you to be free, and there's no greater high, honestly, than living a life that he's got for you. It's amazing. Let's close. Father, I just pray that today that we can know a little bit more about you than we did when we walked in, and that we could have a little bit better understanding, just a little bit about you and what you want for our lives before we walked in here. I thank you so much, God, that we are at a church, we can just be honest and let it fly and know that we don't have it all figured out, but we know that you do, so we're going to trust you, and we're going to give you all of these things that we struggle with. And we know that you're going to do something amazing with it, God. And we know that at the end of the day, you are here, and you are so pleased because all of our attention is squarely on you right now. As we close with these songs, God, help us when we sing them to really know that we're talking to you when we do it. We're talking to you in song. It's in your name. Amen.
South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that He's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says, every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give and you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances, and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you, and thank you for watching our online service today.